Watch today on My Refuge. The Minnesota legacy that almost died, but refused to fall.
Imagine opening your mailbox on an ordinary freezing January morning in central Minnesota. The wind is howling across the open fields, snow is blowing sideways, and your fingers are already numb inside your gloves. You pull out a plain white envelope from the bank. You open it right there in the driveway, and the words hit you like a punch to the chest. Your family. Ace entire 180-acre farm, the same land your great-grandfather cleared with his bare hands in 1892, will be sold at public auction in exactly 90 days. That was the moment David Krokock felt the ground disappear beneath his boots. For 132 years, the Krokock family had held these 180 acres through everything life could throw at them. Great-grandfather Vaclav arrived from Bohemia with nothing but an axe, a pregnant wife, and a dream. He cleared the first 40 acres by hand, cutting trees, pulling stumps, building the red barn board by board in 1892. Grandfather Alfred survived the Dust Bowl years when the sky turned black with dirt, and they ate nothing but potatoes and hope for months. David's own father, on his deathbed in the same white farmhouse, held his son's hand and whispered, "Never let them take our land, son. This is our home. This is who we are." Now, at 42, David was watching that sacred promise slowly crumble under the weight of modern reality. Corn prices had collapsed to levels not seen since the 1980s. Diesel and fertilizer costs had doubled in a single brutal year. The operating loan that once felt like a safety net had become a steel noose tightening around the family's neck every single month. Night after night, David would sit at the old oak kitchen table until 2 or 3 in the morning, the only light coming from the small desk lamp with a cracked green shade. The numbers on the spreadsheets would blur in front of his tired hazel eyes. His strong hands, hands that had baled hay since he was 12, hands that had built fences and delivered calves, now trembled slightly from exhaustion and the quiet terror he tried so hard to hide from his children. The house was silent except for the ticking of the old grandfather clock and the occasional creak of the floorboards. Emily, his wife of 18 years, would quietly come down the stairs in her thick socks, wrap her arms around him from behind, rest her chin on his shoulder, and whisper softly into his ear, "We're losing more than land, David. We're losing who we are as a family." Their 12-year-old son had started having nightmares about strangers tearing down the big red barn. Their 9-year-old daughter would ask every single night at bedtime why Grandpa Alfred cried when he looked out the window at the snowy fields. The guilt sat in David's chest like a heavy stone that grew heavier with every passing day. Every creak of the old barn in the wind sounded like an accusation from the past. Every time he drove past the faded wooden sign that read, "Krokock Family Farm," his throat would tighten until he could barely breathe. He had promised his father. He had promised his children a future on this land. And now he felt like he was failing every single generation that had fought so hard to keep it alive. The community around them was shrinking fast and painfully. 3 neighboring farms had already been auctioned off in the last 18 months. The local diner, once filled with loud laughter and stories of record harvests, was now quiet, with long silences between cups of coffee. People would pat David on the back and say, "Hang in there, buddy." But their eyes told the truth. They had already accepted that another family farm was about to disappear from the Minnesota landscape. David started taking long, lonely walks through the frozen fields at dusk, his boots crunching through the deep snow, the wind howling across the open land like a living thing. He would stop under the old oak tree his great-grandfather planted more than a century ago, place his hand on the rough bark, close his eyes, and ask the same painful question into the freezing air again and again. How do I look my children in the eyes one day and tell them I couldn't keep the promise that was given to me? Yet the deepest pain was still to come, because the land wasn't the only thing this family was about to lose. The lowest moment arrived during the worst blizzard the county had seen in 15 years. Snow was piling against the windows so high it blocked half the glass. The wind howled like a wild animal. Inside the old white farmhouse, the Bankies' final notice lay on the kitchen table under the dim light of a single lamp. Auction in 30 days. No extensions. No mercy. Grandpa Alfred, 88 years old and frail, sat in his wooden rocking chair with silent tears running down his deeply lined face. He looked at David and whispered the words that broke something inside his grandson forever. "I never thought I'd live to see my father's land sold to strangers." The letter from 1934 that lit a fire that same night. Unable to sleep, and with the wind still howling outside like it wanted to tear the house down, David climbed the narrow, creaking stairs into the freezing attic, flashlight in hand. Looking for old tax records he thought might buy them a little more time. The beam of light landed on a small, rusted metal box tucked behind an old steamer trunk covered in dust. Inside, wrapped carefully in oilcloth to protect it from time and moisture, was a single yellowed letter written by his great-grandfather, Vaclav, in the depths of the Great Depression. Dated March 17, 1934. The handwriting was shaky, but still strong and proud. It read, "My dear son, when the bank comes knocking and the whole world tells you to give up and walk away, remember this one thing above all else. The land is not just dirt beneath our feet. It is the blood we spilled clearing these fields with our bare hands. It is the dreams we refused to bury even when our stomachs were empty and our children cried from hunger. Sell the cows if you must. Sell the tractor if you have to. Sell whatever you need to survive. But never, ever sell the dream. The land will take care of you and your children if you refuse to let it go." David sat there on the cold, dusty floor for a long time, tears freezing on his cheeks, reading those words over and over by the weak beam of the flashlight. Something deep and ancient shifted inside his chest. He woke Emily at 4 in the morning, the letter trembling in his calloused hands, and said with a voice she hadn't heard in years, a voice full of fire again, "We're not going down without a fight. Not this time." The next 2 weeks became a whirlwind of desperate, determined, sleepless hope. They sold 40 acres of marginal land to a neighbor who had always wanted it. They filled out every USDA program application until their eyes burned and their fingers cramped. They made the bold decision to open the old red barn as simple weekend farm stays. Nothing fancy, just real farm life. Feeding chickens at sunrise, collecting warm eggs, sitting on the porch with Grandpa Alfred, telling stories from the old days while drinking strong coffee. The children helped paint the signs with bright red letters, giggling for the first time in months. Emily baked her grandmother's kolache recipe every Friday night. Grandpa Alfred, even from his wheelchair, taught them the old Czech songs he remembered from his own childhood. The very first weekend, only 7 brave souls drove through the snow. But they left reviews that spread quietly through local Facebook groups. The second weekend, 23 people came. Families from the cities said they hadn't slept so peacefully in years. Children ran through the snowy fields, laughing until their cheeks were red. The old white farmhouse smelled like fresh bread, coffee, wood smoke, and something that had been missing for a very long time, real, living hope. David stood on the porch one cold evening watching the last guests drive away their taillights, disappearing into the dark. Minnesota night. And for the first time in over a year, he felt a small, warm spark in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, they could still save this legacy after all. But they still owed $420,000, and the auction date was now only 12 days away. 12 days before the auction, the phone rang in the quiet kitchen while the family was having breakfast. The smell of fresh coffee and warm kolache still hung in the air. It was the bank officer, because of the steady new income from the farm stays, the growing direct sales of grass-fed beef, and a USDA restructuring program they had finally approved after weeks of waiting and praying. The foreclosure proceedings were canceled. The farm was saved. The Krokac legacy would not only survive, it would begin to breathe and grow again, the land itself seeming to sigh in relief as the snow started to melt. Today, 2 years later, the historic red barn shines with fresh red paint that catches the first light of every morning. The color so vibrant it almost hurts to look at after all those years of peeling gray. Guests come from Minneapolis, from Chicago, from as far away as Colorado, and even California, wanting to spend quiet healing weekends feeding the chickens at sunrise, with the dew still on the grass, learning to milk the gentle goats whose warm breath fogs the cold morning air, walking the fields as the wheat turns golden, and sitting on the wraparound porch with Grandpa Alfred listening to stories from a time when life moved slower and meant more. The children are growing up strong and deeply rooted, knowing exactly who they are and where they come from, their laughter now the loudest sound on the farm. David still walks the fields at dusk, but now his steps are light, his shoulders are relaxed, and his hazel eyes are peaceful instead of haunted by fear, the warm evening breeze carrying the sweet smell of fresh-cut hay. If this story touched something deep inside your own heart tonight, I'd be truly grateful if you gently tapped the like button. It helps these real, honest, American stories find more people who might be carrying a similar weight on their shoulders. And when the moment feels right for you, subscribing and turning on notifications means you'll be here with us for every new tale of courage, quiet strength, and second chances on the land. If the spirit moves you, I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. What does the word refuge mean to you personally? Is it a piece of land you've always dreamed about owning one day? A garden you tend with your own hands in the backyard? A slower pace of life you long for? When the world feels too loud, or simply that beautiful feeling of finally coming home to yourself after a long journey? We read every single comment, and they matter more than you know. Sharing this video with one person who might need a little hope right now. That would be the kindest thing you could do today, passing on the light we all sometimes need. Thank you, from the bottom of our hearts, for spending this time with the Krokac family and with us here at My Refuge. Until next time, you find your own refuge wherever it may be quietly waiting for you in the silence of the land.